you weren't there, that it's not me getting close and personal, darling. But we have to patrol in this area here.
Yeah, I've been warned.
Yeah, you have been warned to be very sincere. James, it's fantastic that you're with us. Thank you very much for coming along, and we're looking forward to what you're going to say. And I'll try and stimulate some questions for you after. And I think,
If we have time.
yeah, we will have time. I promise you. There's lots of things I want to ask you. So I'll give you that microphone, James.
Okay.
So, thank you, James.
Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, welcome. Welcome. Not back because you're still here, I see. How many of you are from host cities? Just so I have an idea. All right, so, oh, very good. Excellent. There's a couple of friendly faces, or known faces at least, over there. Right, my name is Jens Holm. I'm the CEO of the International Masters Games Association, and since we have 15 minutes, I'm going to get on with it. So please, could I have the first slide? I have to do it, all right. That I have not been informed. Here we go. All right, I'll get on. How many of you are familiar with the Masters movement or the idea of master sport? Oh, quite a few as well. Good. So some of the technical details I'll speed up over then. So first I'll talk a little bit about who we are as an organization, how we run the Masters Games and sort of the core idea behind them and why they work so well as they do. So the organization, we're based right here in Lausanne. We are a non-profit organization. We are entirely self-funded. And our members are the International Federation, and we are fully recognized by both the Olympic Committee and the International Paralympic Committee. In short, our objective is to grow and strengthen the Masters movement. And what is the Masters movement? We will get to that later on. And of course, it is to promote sport for all, which is part of Master Sport. Am I correct in assuming this PowerPoint presentation is available for them later on, so they can read all the information? Okay, great. Okay, so what are Masters Games? Masters Games are open for everyone as long as they pass the minimum age, and that varies a little bit from 25 in some sports up to 50 in other sports, but that's the only qualification. You have to be old enough. Otherwise, it's the games are held according to the normal Masters rules of each federation. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Everyone represent themselves. That means that we have no nationalities, and we allow multinational teams or teams across borders as it is. And we also, quite unusual, we have para sport on the same field of play if it allows it. So for instance, we can have running and we could have wheelchair racing in the same event. So the other thing where I suppose we differ quite significantly is that the athletes, the participants, pay themselves for their participation and for their accommodation. The size of our events, and there are different types of Masters events. We have two global events, the World Masters Games and the World Winter Masters Games. The next one, the World Masters, is in Taipei and New Taipei City in 25. The next winter is in Lombardia in Italy. Then we have three regional events, Asia Pacific, European, and Pan American. And those three events are held in the years in between the World Masters Games. So I know that the date's quite fit now, but I'm sure you can all understand that we've been shuffling things around because of a little thing called COVID, which has affected us all, I think. Then there are lots of other Masters events. We have individual sports Masters events, which are the individual federations. We have national events like the New Zealand Masters Games, Australian Masters Games, Japanese Masters Games, and then there are lots of other commercial events around the world. The numbers, because we're going to get to that, and then we'll get more to the philosophy behind it afterwards. The World Masters Games is a very large event with over 30,000 athletes and their families. It's over 30... Why does this happen? Right, okay. And the budget is about 30 million euros. The Winter Games are much smaller. That has to do with the number of sports. Also, you'll find in the mountains there's normally not real accommodation for many more. And the reason for this. Oh, curveball. And the Winter Games is about €3 million budget, and the regional events is from 6 to 10,000 athletes, depending on a little bit of the city, the amount of venues, and the amount of accommodations available.
It's obviously trying to remind us all of the core facts. Yeah, so can I just ask a quick question as we go along? That budget is what it generates or what it's costing to host?
That's what it costs to host.
Right, okay,
The
got
return
it.
on investment varies from Winter Games is about 4. I don't know if there's a timer.
Is
Might be
it?
a timer on it.
Can we have a quick look and see if we can fix it? Yeah. There's something.
Might-
But either way, we're having an informal chat. So as long as it's not freaking you out too
Yeah,
much,
no,
we're okay with it.
Point element now. No, so yes, the return on investment. I think the last Winter Games we had in Innsbruck was 3.8 times return on investment for the €3 million budget they had roughly. For the World Masters Games, we've had anything from 10 to 16 times return on investment.
Wow.
So the operating budget of the 30 million is not entirely paid in by the city, and we get to that is that we charge less in rights fee than the city gets back in registration fees from the athletes. So
Right.
this way we make sure that the cities end in black, or start at least in black. Then the cities have expenditure of promotion quite heavily, but that comes back because they get the tourism impact directly from. And so that's how the model works, and I will talk about how we look at sustainability that way through. Okay, now I can go to next
Right,
slide.
yeah.
You see, I can just have to say it now. All right, we go for it.
Go for it, yeah, just keep pressing.
Okay, so where is it different? And again, we as I said, we will get into to talk about sustainability. So where we differ as well is that no venues can be built for our events. You have to use existing venues. And that means also because it's participatory sport. Oh my God, okay. Just, can we pause and then we go to the next or whatever so we don't have... Is it possible to pause it? Okay, good. So you have to use the venues, but because it's participatory, you can use school gyms or whatever is available. You can't pause it; it just goes. Then I know it's a little bit confusing this, so maybe we turn it on and then. Sorry. Right.
Is there something we can do to freeze this?
This one? You will look for this slide?
Yeah, just pause it there, and then you pause it, and I'll tell you where to go for the next, because there's clearly some trigger in there.
Yeah. Right, you want to pause that?
No, well, yeah, I can also talk about. We can.
Or was it the one
The
previous?
previous one is actually
Oh, right.
more important. These are just
Okay.
statistics. So
We'll just go back. But right, let's freeze that one if we can.
I think this is because it's.
Is it the
You can. Is there a freeze button on this?
right. we'll act as
It's
your
okay.
clicker.
It's okay.
Right, so back one, and we'll freeze it if we can.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Right. So as I said, no venues can be built, and that's obviously a great advantage for those of you who already have infrastructure available. Also, athletes have to use public transport, and as I said, they pay for their own accommodation. These are the 3 big factors that means that you have much higher return on investment than you will have in typical sporting events. Next slide, please. So who are the Masters athletes? The average age is about 51, but they have quite high income, about 106,000 euros on average, which on a global level is an extremely high income. They're well educated, and my goodness. So maybe we should just...
It's weird, isn't it? I don't
That's a bit strange. Anyway,
yeah,
so
you're doing a great job, James. Just battle through it. You know.
I will. Okay.
Yeah.
So as I said, they. Oh God, this is very, very tricky. The gender distribution is a little bit hard for us to control because the athletes sign up themselves. So those countries where you will see that athletes who are the majority of athletes, the further you get away, the fewer athletes you will get for natural reasons because they have to pay for the cost of travel. And if you are in countries where gender equality is more common, then you have a higher number. For instance, if we have games in Canada, we have more women than men participating. But if you go, for instance, traditional Southern Europe, you will have 30% women and 70% men, roughly. So we try to push for cities to promote to women, but it's still very much controlled by the social environment in the country where you are. Right, I think we can go to the next one. As I said,
whether you want to or not.
Yeah, whether I want to or not. So we know that it's a big driver for this. The event is a big driver. 70% of the athletes come to the city because of the event and for no other reason. Next slide. I'll just speed up now. We also know that in the past we've seen that athletes buy the first segment always to sell out is 5-star hotels, then 4-star hotels, and then 3-star hotels. And predominantly 85% of them, and this is an average across all our events, is they stay in paid accommodation. Okay, go to the next. You can get all this data in the slide. What is
Yeah, we're going to have all of this available. Yes, I know it's a pain in the ass, so I have no idea what's going on.
So anyway, what is interesting here is that of the international athletes who participate, over half of them travel with family, and they bring about 3.7 people with them. So if there's 30,000 athletes, you will have 75,000 to 100,000 people coming to the city. And that puts a big strain on accommodation. We have seen that for instance, in Auckland, we were running out really running out of hotel rooms, and we, in the end, had to cap quite a few of the sports. Next, how long do they stay? So what athletes do is that they tend to come a few days before the event, or they stay a little bit after the event. So if you have an event that's 9 days long, they tend to spend 14 days. And if the event is 14 days, they spend for 20 days. That doesn't mean they stay necessarily in your city, but they'll travel in the region or nationally. So that's also a good link up for you to deal with or to work with the National Tourism Bureau or the Regional Tourism Bureau. Next slide, please. Spending, we can take the next slide already. It's about 3,500 on average they spent, but you can see all that from our website. You can, if you're interested, you can download reports on exactly on tourism spending. And this is what creates the return on investment. As a social impact, and I think this is becoming more and more important, what we have to realize is that in society today, in most of your countries, you already have a quite good infrastructure for sports clubs and venues. But once people have gone to university or gone to school, they leave the sport club and they don't come back. And if we can activate the older part of the population, those who perhaps have retired, and we can get them back into the sports club through that, then there they can serve as mentors for the youth. And also, of course, we have to realize, and the most important factor is that while elite athletes are role models, the real role models for kids are parents, right? So parents and grandparents, if they do sport and they are active, kids will participate. And this is particularly true about women. If a mother participates in sport, a girl is 40% more likely to participate. So that's why we have to look at some of the social benefits. We can also talk about some of the other benefits I can see. These are the basic benefits you get from most major events, that you will learn how to run multi-sports event, and as I said, you'll build a sport for all legacy. Plus you can use the existing venues and possibly use them as an opportunity to upgrade them or refurb a little bit. Next slide. So obviously, it's all stakeholders should benefit from this. And why is it important for the athletes? Because they get the feeling of participating in something which is Olympic style. They get to meet like-minded people from other sports. and they they get to do it in a festive environment, which you will see in the video that will come afterwards. And also, while they're not world famous, these athletes, for them it's extremely important that they're recognized for what they do. They train quite a lot, and they would like their family to see them, receive a medal if they do, and that we provide, of course, as well. Next slide. So I think it's better summarized in the video, and also the video will probably not interrupt. So that's an advantage.
Let's pray.
So please, next.
The International Masters Games, attended by thousands of athletes aged 35 upwards and hosted by some of the world's dynamic cities. A vast array of Olympic and non-Olympic sport in events fully supported by the International Olympic Committee. Your opportunity to take up the challenge at your level. It's a competition, a holiday, a reunion, a memory.
Hello, welcome to Nice, down here on the Mediterranean coast, a world-renowned city which is playing host to more than 7,000 athletes from all over the world, and they're taking part in the European Masters Games. So their ages range from 25 up to 96. 27 different sports involved, and I'm going to show you what it's like to be part of a real festival of sport.
No better way to start than with a spectacle, an athletes' parade and opening ceremony for Nice to proclaim its welcome, whatever the weather, a special chapter to be enjoyed by locals and visitors alike. So to the Games, making the most of what the city has to offer. For Nice, that means sandy beaches, blue seas, not to mention high-class facilities right across the city, from the athletic stadium used for international elite events to sports halls equipped for every standard.
We've got quite a match on here. This is the Grumpy Old Bears in red against North Venice in blue. So Australians against the Russians. Over 45s is the category. But you know, we've got some Olympians, former Olympians out here, and they're not necessarily going to be on the winning side.
The same applies to many of the disciplines here in the Games, where ex-Olympians from the region have been advising Nice on the needs of the athletes. But this is also an event which offers something for the whole of the city. Some sports use the town to showcase their events, while the local economy benefits from an influx of visitors looking to make a holiday out of a sporting experience.
I want to visit like a tourist along the sea, Antibes, Cannes, and it's very important we have a pass to visit a lot of museums. I have seen natural history and modern art and Museo Matisse in these days, and more. Now I go to see Picasso and other. Museo de Sport.
Of course.
It's important.
This is the essence of these games, where everybody wins, the athletes and the city authorities.
It gives them a chance to showcase what they are good at in terms of sports execution, but also it gives them a chance to showcase the city from a tourism point of view, from a cultural point of view. And finally, of course, it's very beneficial to them financially. You know, the athletes come here, they they enjoy themselves. They go to restaurants, they stay in hotels, and the return on investment for our city is manyfold.
And this has become an integral part of the Games. Medals awarded in every age category, gold, silver, bronze. It makes the ceremonies another experience to savour.
The average age here in Nice was 52, and the average age across all our events is 49. So in reality, it's I don't know. Maybe I'm more the average athlete than the 96-year-old who will be very extraordinary in what they do.
So that is the European Masters Games. They come from all over to enjoy the sport, the city, and of course the social. They've all got their story as to why they're here, and most of all it's about taking part in the sport that is their passion, whatever their age. As they'll tell you, if you rest, you rust.
Good. Next slide, please. I think it'll come automatically. So just to summarize, I mean, what we are very focused on here is that our events deliver triple bottom line, both for planet, people, and prosperity, as we say. And by planet, environmental, we have some quite clear rules of what needs to be done in the city, and also, of course, existing venues and using public transport. Socially, it is to activate the local population and to build this active lifestyle legacy. And finally, for prosperity, is to help the city, to help there's tourism spending, and the city gets all the rights, including sponsorship, registration fees, merchandising, etc. So that summarize it. Are there any questions?
Jens, I'm so sorry that you had problems with the slides. I remember when we met, I can't remember now, probably a couple of years ago. Was it before the pandemic? Yeah.
COVID has taken...
Yeah, it really has. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you had actually heard of the organisation before? Okay, actually, probably most of you, because I think that we were certainly familiar with the organisation, but actually didn't really understand what was driving it. The numbers are huge that are taking part in it, and it's really this interesting thing, isn't it, about they're not professional athletes. There's no, correct me if I'm wrong, there's no winners. Is there winners? I forget. There's no national teams.
I mean, there will be winners, but
Yeah.
but it's on a recreational level. So there, as was said as well, there are former world champions and Olympians, but they make out about 8%.
Yeah, so it's just naturally competitive people who enjoy their sport and want to get something from it, I guess.
Well, when we pulled our athlete database, which is quite substantial, the main reason why people participate is to socialize.
Right.
The second most highest reason is to have a tourism experience, and and only in the United States winning is the most important. All other countries seem to be the same.
Right. Well, look, Jens, we got a question here, so I'm going to hand my microphone over. So, forgive me.
Hi, I'm Veronique from Montreal. I'm just wondering if if you can adapt the sports depending on where the host that's hosting the event.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, in Canada, when the World Masters Games was there in 2005, we had, in the Summer Games, we had ice hockey on the program, as an example, which was incredibly popular, but because it was out of season. Okay. But yes, that's part of it, especially for the regional events. It's about regional sports, and it's also because if a city doesn't have a venue for one of the sport is off the program. So we don't force a city to have it, and therefore we have quite a large flexibility. It's also because we don't fit within the natural sports calendar. So we don't overlap with other events, so to speak. Okay.
Any other questions? And I think you've said before also about this thing about going with the families and having. So you're right. They want to go to the destination. They want to compete, but often accompanied by their family. So you actually leave quite a large economic footprint then, essentially, when you host this event.
Yes, I mean at the last World Masters Games in Auckland in 17. Oh, sorry, in 19. Oh no, 17. It was 17. I think it was 326,000 room nights.
Wow, I mean, it's a big number, isn't it, folks? Yeah, and with a lot of spend.
Yeah, with a very high spending because of the income group that they're in. It's not something we specifically target, but it just comes naturally. Especially from people who come further away, you got to have a certain level of income to travel with your whole family, and also because you find a lot of the athletes are in managerial positions, which allows them to take time off whenever they want, to. So
Interesting. The question I have to ask all the federations coming up is, unless was there any other questions? Sorry, I don't see a hand. No. Is what would you like from these guys next? Are they meant to sort of say, hey? Can we jump on a call? Can they grab your attention after these sessions are over? What's your preferred way of following, even if it's curiosity at this point?
Always open for dialogue. I mean, to be completely honest, we're selling out very quickly. I mean,
That's great.
So we have. But what I will tell you is that it's better to start the dialogue the sooner the better, and then we can always work around it. And in fact, we try not to run bids. We try to find a city that's a good fit with our product, because when you run bids, there are a whole lot of obstacles that we don't necessarily want, and sometimes at the end of a bid, you might end up with the city that is not preferable for the athletes. So we try to find something that's a good fit, and that's why long-term dialogue is what we've been doing since the beginning of this, really.
And isn't it great that there is that demand, right? But
I think it's a natural development. I think we see a complete change in what's happening after the economic crisis in 2008. Politicians are being held more accountable for how the money is spent. They have to prove that it's well worth investing in. COVID has certainly taught us that a healthy lifestyle is also an added bonus. And we know that prevention is better than investing heavily in healthcare and the other end. So
that's really good message.
we see sort of a shift that way very much.
Well, Jens, the presentation is going to the people who are online watching you now. So I think the Chinese will still be online, and obviously all of that will be. Let's make sure without the transition problems, I'll take personal responsibility for that, make sure that doesn't happen. And we'll post that online along with the great video. I thought that was really well done as well. I'm just going to check one last time. If there's no other questions now, yes, we'll just say thank you very much indeed for coming to join us. It's been great to see you here.
Yeah, pleasure.
Thank you so much, Jens. It's really good to see you. Thanks again.